It may be springtime in Tuscaloosa, but football is definitely in the air. It's A-Day. The Crimson team, will face off against the white team in the annual A-Day game at 2 p.m. In the meantime, we're getting you ready on Crimson Tide Kickoff, and it starts right now.
Live from Bryant-Denny Stadium, it's the Alabama Alumni Association Crimson Tide Kickoff A-Day Special with Gary Harris, presented by Alpha Insurance.
Well, the fans are already in game day mode on the Walk of Champions. This is Alabama, after all. Another spring training culminates with Alabama's annual spring game, A-Day. And today the Tide will take the field one last time before fall practice begins in August. And welcome in, everybody, to Crimson Tide Kickoff's A-Day Special, brought to you by the Alabama Alumni Association. I'm Gary Harris. We're with you for the next hour, counting you down to the kickoff of A-Day 2015 from the top of Bryant-Denny Stadium. Believe it or not, it's Nick Saban's 9th A-Day in Tuscaloosa. Who would have thought that? He'd only spent 5 years maximum at any previous stop. Now he's entering his 9th year at Alabama. We've got a lot to get to. Let's take a look at what's coming up. Great guest, as always, on Crimson Tide Kickoff. You'll recognize the Castille name. What's different about Caleb? Well, he's bucked the football tradition of the family. He is now an actor and starring in a very special film, Woodlawn, that will premiere in October. We'll break it down. Plus, the voice of the Crimson Tide, Eli Gold, since 1988. He's been calling Alabama football. Ryan Fowler, he likes to stir it up on 99.1 radio here in Tuscaloosa, Tide 99.1. He'll join us. David Wilson from the Alumni Association will tell you how you can get involved with Alabama athletics. B.J. Milliken will have his milliseconds feature. We'll have offensive and defensive previews. Plus, we'll take a look at what the winner gets for winning the game, steak, and the loser has to eat beans. We'll talk about that. A jam-packed edition of CTKO, and we start things off by checking in on our rather extensive team, which is stationed around campus. We'll get a check on the weather with Richard Scott in just a moment, but first up, we're heading over to the quad to check in on Chelsea Barton and the tailgating scene. Chelsea?
Hey, Gary, lots of fans beginning to come out and make their presence known here on campus. Not going to lie, I was a little worried earlier. Not many people were out here, but there's no need to miss out on this A-Day game atmosphere. As you can see, it's not raining yet, and it really does feel great out here. Folks are already excited. As you can see, there's lots to do here right around this stadium. Vendors are set up giving away free goodies. Lots of yummy food tents right here in the area, too. And as you can see, you can't forget about your Crimson Tide merchandise. There's a large booth set up right here between Reese Pfeiffer Hall and the Walk of Champions. So if you don't have any Crimson Tide merchandise to wear today, they will definitely fix you up. I'm going to try to round up some of these excited fans you see here a little bit later. Plus, I'm going to let you meet our A-Day game tailgaters. And right now, let's check in with Chief Meteorologist Richard Scott to see if this rain is going to hold off. Hey, Richard.
Hey, Jess. Yeah, so far so good. It looks gloomy. Looks like it'll rain about any time. But I looked at the radar, the latest look at radar. There's no rain anywhere near. So that's good news for coming out to Tuscaloosa for A-Day. Now let's check out things with our tower camera that looks at Bryant-Denny Stadium. And it looks gloomy outside. It looks like it could rain at any time. Temperatures are slowly warming up. It was kind of cool earlier this morning. Now it's kind of warm and muggy. Temperature map. Now let's check that out because we've got temperatures warming across the area. Most observations reporting temperatures back in the 60s to low 70s now. We'll continue warm for the rest of the day. A big question, though, let's look at the radar and satellite. Now, is there any rain near us? There's rain west of us. Now, you notice all the rain back off towards the west, showers and thunderstorms. They are moving our way. It's going to be a little while before it gets here. Most of today will be relatively dry. Now, there could be a little drizzle or some sprinkles, but nothing major until later this afternoon and this evening. That's when the heavier rain moves in. So let's check out the 8-day forecast. Alabama take it on Alabama. Roll Tide, right? 2 p.m. kickoff, temperatures in the 70s. So look for the chance for rain and thunderstorms. But understand, most of the rain's going to hold off, I think, until after the game. But if you're going to Bryant-Denny Stadium, take the poncho just to be safe because it is going to be a close call. Hey, let's check in on Auburn. Auburn is also playing Auburn for their A-Day game today, 1 p.m. kickoff. But mostly cloudy there. If you're heading down to Jordan-Hare Stadium, I really don't think it's going to be any rain at all there, so that is good news if you are heading down south. Of course, here on the Walk of Champions, things are starting to get a little more active this morning, and a lot more folks are starting to pile in, getting ready for the big A-Day game this afternoon. We're going to go over to Jen Chapman She's got some more updates. Jen.
Hey everybody, coming up from the Walk of Champions, I'll be joined with Ryan Fowler, the host of 99.1 The Game. Ryan has been a part of the media business for 12 years, covering the Crimson Tide. And although he lives in Tuscaloosa, he doesn't shy away from the controversial questions. So we'll ask him about that. Also talk to him about his callers, how he feels about the Tide's offense and defense moving into the next year and filling the gaps from those who graduated and those who left early for the NFL draft. And we'll also get to know Ryan a little bit better. You'll be surprised to find out what his hobby is when he's not on the radio. So we're going to have that coming up live from the Walk of Champions.
Thank you, Jen. Also, Richard and Chelsea, great job, guys. We're looking forward to checking back with all of you throughout the show. Well, we mentioned it just a minute ago, but this will be Nick Saban's 9th 8A in Tuscaloosa. Hard to believe that. But since then, the 8A game has continued to be one of the best attended in the country. More than 668,000 fans have turned out to really what is a practice game, but Alabama fans love their football. Coach Saban understands the importance of the spring game, not only in recruiting, and it's big, but giving the young players already on the team a taste of expanding roles in front of thousands of screaming Tide fans. For those fans, he says it's a chance for them to show their appreciation.
We're looking forward to this game. The players are looking forward to it. You know, A-Day is a tremendous tradition here and a fantastic day for our fans, our players, to have the great response that we've had and support with a great crowd there has been something that our players really, really appreciate. And if you have the opportunity, you know, come and support our players. You know, these guys work hard year-round just about to try to have the kind of team, the kind of program that a lot of people can be proud of.
A lot going on in Tuscaloosa today. Here's a look at just some of the activities. The Fan Fest and the Kickoff Zone both open to fans at 10 a.m. An autograph session featuring former Crimson Tide players like Dante Hightower starts at 11 outside Gate 5. Then the Walk of Fame ceremony begins at Denny Chimes at 12:15. And kickoff for the game, of course, is at 2 p.m. So plenty of stuff to keep you busy until the game kicks off, that's for sure. We hope you'll stay with us because we've got so much more to come on CTKO's 8A Special. Next up, Caleb Castille will join us to talk about the movie that he stars in about former Crimson Tide star Tony Nathan in a big high school football game back in the 70s. It's called Woodlawn, and you'll get a sneak peek next. Stay with us. CTKO 8A rolls on from Bryant-Denny Stadium right after this timeout.
You have a gift, and you have to decide what you want to do with it.
I can't. I mean, I play for a team that don't even want me. Anybody like me? Look at me.
That is a familiar face to many of us around the city of Tuscaloosa and Birmingham from a great Alabama family. Caleb Castille, starring now as another former Crimson Tide great, Tony Nathan, in the Irwin Brothers film Woodlawn. Tony Nathan, of course, was a great player. This film chronicles his start at Woodlawn High School, being recruited by Coach Bryant. Of course, the Woodlawn and Banks game, which made history at Legion Field. And Caleb Castille joins us now. Caleb, thanks for being with us.
Yes, sir. Good to see you.
All right, everybody knows the Castille family. And you were coming up in the tradition of your dad and your brothers as a football player through high school, then here at the University of Alabama, but now a major turn of direction.
Definitely.
Just talk to me first about how this opportunity came about. I know there were other actors that were considered, or did you even consider yourself an actor up to this point? How did you get this role, and you made a decision to give up football in college for the time being to become an actor?
Yeah, well, that was it. I made a decision to follow a dream that I always had, that to be an actor. And that was after my junior season, after we had won a national championship. So a lot of people thought I was crazy, But I feel like, when you feel something in your heart, you just got to go for it. And that's exactly what I did. And about a year after I made that decision, here comes this role. And I auditioned for it, which about 500 actors around the world, they auditioned for this role. So I just feel extremely blessed to be in the position.
When you start an acting career, you're looking for opportunities. This is certainly a big one for you, but it's not that far from home. as we mentioned, you know Alabama football. You know the tradition of playing for Coach Bryant because of your dad.
Right.
You were familiar with Tony Nathan. So even though you're not Tony Nathan, I would think as far as your first big role, what better fit than to play an Alabama football player, huh?
Right. I connected with Tony on a lot of levels as a man because, I feel like we had a lot of similarities with us both playing at the University of Alabama. Those are tough conditions. You face tough conditions as an actor in the industry. And so it made it easy to it made it easy to step into the role and to do the best I could.
This film chronicles not only Tony Nathan, but a period of time in Birmingham in the early and mid-1970s. We'd been through desegregation, but it was still white athletes and students learning to live and play with black athletes and students. Right. There were some trying times for Tony Nathan. Now, he prevailed in the end, but talk about the social aspect and the message in this film.
Well, the message is that love can overcome hate, basically. It's a message of hope, and I feel like that comes across in the film so well. Tony was he was a quiet guy, so he lived by example. He let his actions just speak for themselves, and so he didn't get involved with a lot of the violence, a lot of the fighting and everything that was going on. He knew that he could use his athletic ability to bring people together because sports, and especially football, transcends across any culture. So
a big part of this film is built around that iconic matchup between Banks High School, led by Jeff Rutledge. Yeah. The Banks is no longer with us. Woodlawn High School, led by Tony Nathan, at Legion Field. How many people were there, and what was that game like to be a part of it, even if it's as an actor?
Wow. It was, could you imagine 42,000 fans at a high school game? 20,000 people couldn't get in the stadium. And, I just could not imagine that type of setting. I've played out here in front of 100,000, but being in high school, everybody loves those Friday night lights. And it was just a huge opportunity to be a part of something that's just so special to a lot of people that lived in that era and are still alive today. And we had one day on set where we brought them out, and we actually were filming that game, and so it was just really neat to be able to see that.
Tell us when the film opens, and I know you want everybody to go see it.
Yeah, the film opens October 16th. Woodlawn, Dare to Believe. It's going to be great. We have an amazing, incredible story that America needs to see.
And finally, while I got you, I know you've moved on now, but Alabama football is always going to be a part of you.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think about this team's chances coming up in 2015?
I think the team's chances are great. Coach Saban always has a special way of getting his guys to play above and beyond even what they believe themselves. And so I'm looking forward to the season. I'm looking forward to the quarterback challenge. I'm looking forward to seeing the new kid, Blake. And so it's going to be great. I think, I have the utmost respect for those guys because I've been there. I know what they're going through. So I'm just excited, man.
Thank you, Caleb.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
The film is Woodlawn. You're definitely going to want to see it, even if you're not a football fan. It's going to be awesome. Next up on CTKO, we'll go back down to the quad with Chelsea Barton, who brings us the 8A Tailgaters of the Week, plus a special 8A edition of Milliseconds with B.J. Milliken. He takes us inside what it takes to get Bryant-Denny Stadium looking so good on football Saturdays. We're rolling along on CTKO's special 8A edition. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
Now, this week's Tailgaters of the Game, brought to you by Krispy Kreme Donuts.
Hey, Gary, as you can see, not many folks out here tailgating on the quad for A-Day yet, but I did find a diamond in the rough here with Amy Wilson and her bunch of folks. Amy, tell me a little bit about who's here with us today.
Oh, wrong person. Well, I'm Amy. I'm from Coosa County, and this is Tim.
Tim from Atlanta.
I'm Joe from Michigan.
Michigan.
Tom from Michigan.
Tommy from South Florida.
All right, so we've got folks from all over. And tell me a little bit about why you guys chose to not let the possibility of rain scare you guys away from tailgating today.
Roll Tide.
Yeah, that's right. Good friends, a good time. Little rain never hurt anybody, so Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. And I understand that we have somebody who's not exactly at the right A-Day, maybe. Tommy?
A-Day is for the University of Alabama, but War Eagle.
Regardless, it's my pleasure to present you guys with a dozen Krispy Kreme donuts for an entire year each month from our sponsors at Krispy Kreme. I hope you guys enjoy these, and thanks for coming out and showing your Bama and other Alabama team spirit. That'll do it for now. Gary, back to you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chelsea. And there you see Coach Bryant's statue near the Walk of Champions. Already fans are filling up. It may not be a beautiful day, but the temperature's cool. So far, the rain has held off, and the fans will be turning out in big numbers as always. The gates will open at noon, and after the game, the fans will be able to take to the field themselves. And it's no secret that it takes a lot of work to make the playing surface at Bryant-Denny Stadium look so beautiful each and every Saturday in the fall and the spring for that matter. B.J. Milliken got an inside look at just what it does take in this A-Day edition of Milliseconds.
We're here today at Bryant-Denny Stadium to find out how the grounds crew gets the field looking just as good as the football team come Saturday. This is such a pristine ground we've got here. How do you get this cathedral of football in Alabama looking so good?
Well, I've got a good crew here. We do a lot of good things out here. The administration supports us. We have the resources we need.
We were just noticing just how perfect it looks. When do you kind of get that gratification of, well, my job is done?
Gratification, it's, you know, as soon as we do that, they tear it up and we start over. So I don't know where that comes.
It's like a baker, though. He bakes a nice pie and then it gets eaten, right?
That's right. That's right. And that's what it is. That's who we're saving it for. We're saving it for the game.
You kind of feel like the grass is kind of like your baby. Is that what you?
A baby, absolutely. It's got all those parts to it. Sure, it keeps me up at night sometimes and everything. Yeah, I guess so.
Now, what kind of grass specifically do we have on Bryant-Denny Stadium?
We have a 419 sod. It's the same type of grass you would see on most sports fields and most golf courses in the area. We've overseeded it with a ryegrass, and we get these kinds of results.
All right, now, Scott, we've seen the commercial, the famous commercial with the Chiefs logo being painted in the end zone wrong. Have you ever had a situation like that?
We've not had that particular situation. I got a really great crew, and they don't bobble the ball too many times.
But if they did, what would you do in a situation like that?
I guess you'd basically cover it over and start again, and hope it didn't shadow through.
Alabama, easier to spell than Chiefs.
Thanks, BJ. Scott and his crew, as we just saw, do a terrific job. The stadium playing surface looks outstanding for the game today. Of course, the question is, which quarterback will see more time on that grass today? There are 5 scholarship quarterbacks on the roster, and all of them are still getting repped. So it's no sure thing as to who is going to be the starter in the fall. In fact, we don't even know who's going to be the starter coming out of the spring. As he often does, Nick Saban invoked a baseball analogy in describing what he would like to see out of one of these quarterbacks heading into the fall.
I think all these guys at some point in time have shown they have the capability of doing it. I think the issue is who can do it with the most consistency. You know, who can, you know, it's just like a guy that shows he can hit a home run. But the good home run hitters hit them more often than the other guys. So we're looking for the guys that can do it more consistently and who's going to help play winning football at that position on the most consistent basis.
And here is a list of guys that are trying to get noticed today. The most experienced 2 are Coker and Alec Morris. Morris pulling double duty some during the spring as a wide receiver. I should say Bateman is. Morris working as a punter as well. Bateman, the sophomore, looking at wide receiver and quarterback, and then a redshirt freshman, Cornwell, and a true freshman in Blake Barnett, all of them will get time under center this afternoon. Well, when we come back to CTKO, we'll bring in another very special guest. You've been hearing him on Fall Saturdays Call Alabama Football since the 1980s. Eli Gold, the voice of the Crimson Tide, will talk about this upcoming team and what we can expect to see from today's game and much more. So stay with us. We're coming right back. Crimson Tide Kickoff's 8-day special rolls on right after this break. Welcome back to Bryant-Denny Stadium. We're counting you down to the kickoff of the 8-day game. The 2015 Crimson Tide will conclude spring drills here today at 2 p.m. And our next guest really needs no introduction. He's been the voice of Crimson Tide football since 1989. He was the voice of the Crimson Tide basketball team from 1988 through 2002. The esteemed, nationally recognized, internationally known Eli Gold is with us.
You read that exactly as I wrote it. Thank you. You know, I was just sharing with Gary a very interesting item, and I have been doing these games for a long time, thank God. I don't believe I have ever been to the upper deck here at Bryant-Denny Stadium. I've never had the reason. And these are great seats, man. We were just sitting here looking, and these are great seats. I don't think I've ever been up here in all of the years that I've been behind the microphones.
It's great up here. Now, if you had a fear of heights, you might not.
Well, but still, it's a great seat. Yeah, it really is.
You know, so much has changed since you started doing the games. Internet, now almost every game is televised. There's so many different ways to get the information, but still, there is a connection. It's part of the lore of Southern football between the fans and the radio announcer for the team. And that will never go away.
It won't. And it's really that way in a lot of sports. You know, Vin Scully and the Dodger fans. Back in his day, Mel Allen and Red Barber with the Yankees. Ray Scott with the Packers. So many guys. You know, it's just the way it is. You know, the TV guys do great jobs. Their coverage is outstanding. But one day it's Vern Lundquist. Next day it's Brent Musburger. Next day it's Brad Nessler. Next day it's, you know, Dave Neal. Next game you go back to Vern. Whatever it is. On radio, whether it was John Forney, Paul Kennedy, myself, and our respective color analysts, we're like that comfortable pair of shoes. You turn on the radio for the game, you know the same guys with the same rooting interests as you are going to be there. And that's why I call radio a very romantic medium. It's far more personal, and the relationship you build with your listener far more personal than the more antiseptic network play-by-play gig.
Now, those folks that are just Alabama football fans, now a lot of people know, but some may not know that you've done just about every sport there is to do. NFL football, basketball, but you and I have talked about this before, but from New York City, Eli Gold is associated with two of the most Southern traditions that there are in sports, NASCAR and Alabama football. What about the irony there?
It's remarkable. This is now my 40th year doing NASCAR broadcasts, my 27th, 28th year here with the Tide. And, you know, the funny thing was, growing up in Brooklyn, New York, I was born in that era when New York City was a one baseball team town. I was born before the Mets had come, after the Giants and Dodgers had left. So you had to be a Yankee fan if you were a New York City pulling for your home team. And, of course, Mel Allen, a former voice of the Crimson Tide, from Bessemer, Alabama, was the voice of the Yankees, along with Red Barber from Columbus, Mississippi.
That's right.
So I grew up listening on my old transistor radio. Look it up if you don't know what that is. Listening to two Southern guys describe the northernmost franchise, the Yankees. And thankfully I was able to meet and get to know Mel Allen very well in his later years. And we used to laugh about that, how he went from Alabama to New York, and I went from New York to Alabama, but I wouldn't do it any other way.
And, of course, it was a non-Southern traditional sport, ice hockey.
That actually got me here, exactly.
So your story has all kinds of twists.
It does. But I've been blessed is the bottom line.
And if folks want to know about your career, I know it's been out for a while, but you got a great book that chronicles from growing up in Brooklyn.
Thank you. It's From Peanuts to the Press Box. The name because I used to sell peanuts at Madison Square Garden as a kid. I couldn't afford to get in. We didn't have money. So I said, what's the best way to get in? Have them pay you. So I was the kid walking through. You go, hey, get your peanuts here. And then, of course, I ended up working in some of those same buildings in the press box, so that's where the name came from.
Knicks and Yankees. And I assume, being a traditional New Yorker, not that you couldn't pull for the Jets, you probably are a Giants fan.
Actually, no, because we couldn't get Giants tickets.
So you're a Jets fan.
They had a season ticket list like the Tide. The Jets, who were the Titans at that time, playing in the Polo Grounds, they had tickets galore. So my dad and I were able to get cheap seats at the Polo Grounds, and they allowed you to keep those similar seats when they moved to Shea Stadium, which was the new ballpark at the time. Of course, Shea is no longer there, but yeah, I became a Jets fan. Used to pull for Joe Namath. Used to boo Kenny Stabler, who was my color man here. And the other guy who we used to boo all the time was the great coach of the Denver Broncos and the Boston Patriots, a guy by the name of Lou Saban.
That's right.
A relative, obviously, of our coach here. So, yeah, it's interesting how it all cycles around.
See the stuff you're finding out today on Crimson Tide Kickoff? Because Eli never talks about himself when he does a broadcast. That's one of the great things about being a terrific announcer is you always make it about the game. Speaking of that, Eli, a new season is upon us. I know the 8A game is exciting for fans, but it's a challenge as a broadcaster.
It is.
Alabama versus Alabama.
It's that you're going to be talking about young men who, some of them, we'll probably not see again until the fourth quarter of the Charleston Southern game. But they play a big part. They're on the scout team. They prepare for the opponents, and all of those kids deserve to be talked about. Mom and Dad and Grandma and Grandpa are listening in. So you've got to have all of that. Then you got guys changing sides, and you have, 5 guys wearing number 44 or something. It's one of those things, but it's interesting to see those guys who do step to the forefront for the first time. But at the same time, you can't take it all as the end-all and be-all. Remember last year, we didn't see all that much from Blake Sims. Everybody was getting all concerned. Well, there wasn't much in there in the game plan for him. Guy goes out and rewrites the Crimson Tide quarterbacking record book. So what you see and hear today is not really the end-all and be-all.
Finally, Eli, and we're getting short on time, but I want to ask you about this because I think it's fortunate that Alabama's in this position, but it's unfortunate that this is where we're at in this short attention span society. Same thing happened in Kentucky in basketball. I saw where they a lot of announcers called their season a bust. Just because they didn't win the national championship. They won the SEC. They won the SEC tournament. Same thing for Alabama football. It's got to the point now where if the Tide doesn't win the national championship, a lot of people are disappointed. And that's sad because last year was a terrific year.
I believe last year was probably the best coaching job that we had seen from Nick Saban and his staff, because when we walked out of that opener against West Virginia, I don't know how many folks necessarily expected that we would be one of the 4 teams in the play. You'd hoped so. But there were holes to fill.
Right.
Everybody's not going to win every single game every year. But you're right. In this day and age of what have you done for me lately, it's sad that a lot of folks just can't enjoy success if you don't win the whole thing. It's too bad.
It was a great season. Nick Saban's 3rd SEC championship. Thank you so much, Eli.
Great to see you.
As always.
And thanks for letting me come up here to the upper deck for the first time.
Our pleasure. All right, Eli Gold. Next on the show, we're heading back to the quad with Chelsea Barton to check in on the tailgating activities on this 8-day Saturday. Plus, we dive into the offensive side of the football. How has the Tide improved, and what will we see out of the offense today? Scott Braswell has that story coming up. Stay with us. The fans are getting ready for 8-day on the quad. We'll be right back with Crimson Tide Kickoff. It's an overcast day at Bryant-Denny Stadium. We'll see just how many fans make it inside. Ohio State still owns the all-time record for spring game attendance, 95,722 at the Horseshoe in 2009. But, of course, Alabama does have 6 of the top 10 highest attendance numbers for spring games, and that's no surprise. Really, it was 2007 when Alabama fans filled this stadium for Nick Saban's spring game that really has caused this huge takeoff with spring game attendance. Schools around the country saw what a benefit it was to recruiting, and they started encouraging their fans to come out in big numbers. But it was kind of started 2007 here with Nick Saban and Alabama. All right, let's check in now with Chelsea Barton, who's standing by on the Walk of Champions. Chelsea, what do you have for us?
Hey, Gary, I'm out here along the Walk of Champions with what appears to be one of the most popular booths out here. Tell me a little bit about what you guys are doing.
Well, we're doing the Marine Corps Pull-Up Challenge, and that's just generating interest in Marine Corps officer programs. And what it is allowing kids and whoever else wants to come over and try and do pull-ups or flex arm hang. It's the Marine Corps standards for physical fitness, and we're just trying to have some fun.
Perfect. Has it been really fun to watch the kids and see what they can do?
So far, our biggest crowd is kids, probably about her age, and they're having a great time with it.
Perfect. Tell me a little bit about how fun it is to be out here on A-Day.
Well, this is my first A-Day. I'm really excited about it. The crowd so far seems a little light, but I'm hoping it picks up a little bit towards game time. It's fun, though. It's a good time.
Perfect. And I understand you're an Alabama fan, right?
I am, yes.
Perfect. And you are?
I'm an Auburn fan, actually.
An Auburn fan. That's 2 Auburn fans I've encountered here at Alabama A-Day. That's all right. Well, we have a special guest who wants to do some pull-ups here after this young lady. Look, it's our meteorologist, Richard Scott. He's going to show us what he has. Richard, let's see what you got, all right?
Okay, when you get up on the bar, you're going to go to your bar, crosses the plane of your chin crosses the plane of the bar. You're going to drop down so your arms are completely locked out. You ready?
Right, let's do it.
All right, begin.
1, 2, 3.
Good job. Come on. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Go,
9.
Richard.
Come on, you got it. Come on. 10.
Oh, good job. Awesome. Good job, Richard. Well, thank you guys so much. Anything else that you wanted to talk about or add?
Just come out and see us and do some pull-ups. Get some free Marine Corps gear.
Perfect. Thanks. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Chelsea. Good job by Richard Scott there. Of course, he didn't have a lot of weight to pull up. That's an advantage, but 10 pull-ups, that's pretty good. Well, many eyes will be on the offensive side of the football today. Lane Kiffin chose to come back and lead the Tide offense for a second season, but he doesn't have a lot of returning pieces. Scott Braswell has more on the offense we'll see today.
The saying goes, Alabama doesn't rebuild, they reload. The offense faces many questions after losing 9 starters from last year's squad. The first task, replace Blake Sims at quarterback. Coach Saban is still looking for someone to win the job.
You know, in fall camp, we're going to need to establish, okay, here's the guy but somebody's got to take the bull by the horns and do that too. You know, it's not for us to give away, it's for somebody to earn.
The quarterback position isn't the only area of concern for the Tide, as they also lose their top 3 receivers, including Heisman finalist and Biletnikoff winner Amari Cooper. But Junior Chris Black says he's ready to fill the void.
I think it's time for me to step up and, kind of be the leader and, take out other younger guys under my wings and, keep leading, keep pushing forward. Yeah, along with our Darius Stewart, Robert Foster, we all like brothers, we all go out and compete every day, try to make each other better.
The backfield for Alabama will look to Derrick Henry and Kenyon Drake to carry the torch passed down from T.J. Yeldon. The Tide lost Tyron Jones and Bo Scarborough during spring practice due to a dismissal and injury. Derrick Henry says the unit still has talent to go around.
We got a lot of good new guys in. We got the Sherris, Ronnie Harris, and we got Bo. And me and Kenyon and everybody else is trying to help these guys, learn.
The offensive line will also feature plenty of new faces this season, as the group only returns Ryan Kelly and Cam Robinson.
With me and Ryan being the only 2 returning starters, I'm just trying to, it's a lot of guys who maybe look to me, as a leader, even though I'm only, a sophomore. But I just try to help them as much as I can, just give them any little pointers that I know.
For Crimson Tide Kickoff, I'm Scott Braswell reporting.
Thanks, Scott. Here's a tough graphic for the Tide offense because of all the lost production. Look at the percentage of all the rushing yards that are gone, along with 58% of rushing touchdowns, and it gets even worse with the passing and receiving. A large majority of both those categories gone for the Tide offense in 2015. But as Coach Saban likes to point out, there will be opportunities for the young players to step up and fill those roles. Stay with us. We've got more to come on CTKO, including a talk with David Wilson from the Alumni Association about events going on today and beyond. Plus, we'll hear from players about a time-honored tradition, who will eat steak and who will have to settle for beans. It's a big incentive for winning this game. That's next. Stay with us. Crimson Tide Kickoff rolls on with our 8-day special when we come back right after this. It's a time-honored tradition for A-Day. The winners of the game get a steak dinner while the losers settle for beans. That's one thing they're fighting for today. Meanwhile, Nick Saban issued a challenge to media members who serve as guest coaches and end up on the losing side.
I have yet to see a media person in 8 years go eat beans. And the guys that get steaks come and eat steaks. So, you know, if you want to be on a team, you got to make a commitment to the team. And you know, be there good and bad, thick and thin. You got to be there with your team.
Lane Kiffin got in on the fun on Twitter, putting this challenge out to his fellow assistant coaches. He says he likes his steak medium well. Sounds like he's planning on winning. All right, joining us now to discuss some of the alumni activities taking place today is David Wilson from the National Alumni Association. David, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
First, let's just start about what all's on tap for today.
You know, there's a lot of activity taking place, which really started last night. There was a lot of things going on here at the stadium and a lot of things at North River and all throughout the campus. But today, you go by the quad and there's just a lot of tailgating taking place. We've got some autographs taking place out there at the Mercedes-Benz tent. And the gates open at noon, so people will be coming in here pretty soon. Right. So it's quite exciting out there.
Spring football wraps up today. They won't practice again until August, but there are a lot of events taking place between now and then.
Yes. Oh, hell. You know, there are so many events taking place after this period here. You've got the Crimson Caravan starting Tuesday, right. And that will be going for 4 weeks in a row. They'll be going to Huntsville, Dothan, Atlanta, Dallas, Texas. Quite exciting to get an opportunity to see Coach Saban, and the fans enjoy seeing that. But also, too, in the Alumni Association, there's about 100 chapters around the country. We have chapters in California, New York, right here in Tuscaloosa, and we have events that we take coaches to, we take administrators to, deans, and past athletes, so that they can communicate with our fans out there. And the fans is what it's all about.
So the fans can stay connected regardless of where they live in this country.
Absolutely, and that's, you know, that's the great thing about the University of Alabama. We have more fan support outside this state than ever before, and it's growing drastically, and we're reaching out to them as much as we can.
Yeah, it's called the National Alumni Association, but you don't have to be an alum to get involved.
Absolutely not. That's, you know, I think people think about us as the Alumni Association. We have probably 300,000 good alumni addresses in the database, but we have millions of fans out there, and we want them to be part of us. We want them to know that they can come back to this campus and visit it, and all they need to do is get connected.
Yeah, $40 a year.
$40 a year. They can call the Alumni Association. Hey, it's tax deductible. It's not about the money. It's about staying connected and communicated with, and finding out how you take that next step to get involved with the university.
You saw the information on the screen. Get in touch with David and the good folks at the Alumni Association.
Thank you,
so
sir.
much, David.
Thank you.
We'll be back after this. A lot of movement on Alabama's defensive coaching staff. Kirby Smart is now with the linebackers, while Mel Tucker comes in from the NFL to coach the secondary, and Tosh Lapoy will coach outside linebackers. Kevin Steele moved on to LSU, while Lance Thompson is now at Auburn. Alabama also must replace more stars who moved on to the NFL. Andrew Clare has a preview of the Tide's defense for 2015.
Giving up 281 rushing yards in the Sugar Bowl loss to Ohio State left a bad taste in the mouths of UA defenders. They have made the vow to not let this happen again.
We're going to try to get after the offense and compete, you know. I mean, as a defense, we really take pride in stopping the run, so that's going to be our main goal. You know, we have other goals that we want to accomplish. We really just want to go out there and, as Coach Saban would say, establish an identity.
With the departure of playmakers such as Landon Collins, Trey DePriest, and Nick Perry, the defense is looking for guys to step up and fill those roles. Head coach Nick Saban says he wants the defense to play with fire.
I want guys to compete to be the best. I don't want them to, you know, feel like, oh, it's my turn to play now because I've been sitting behind these guys for a while. And I want to see a lot of energy and enthusiasm and intensity in the way they compete, and those are the kind of guys that we want to play with.
There will be some new additions to the Alabama defense this year, not only on the field but on the sideline, with Tosh Lapoy now working with the outside linebackers and Mel Tucker coming over from the NFL to coach the secondary.
It's definitely a blessing having somebody of his caliber and have as much knowledge as he does, coming from the NFL background and just his experience, and also being a guy that was under Coach Saban for a number of years.
I just think they're developing, you know, a lot more and more every day, just learning more and getting more comfortable in our system. And, you know, with Coach Lapoy coming in, you know, everybody's just, I think we're going to have an added, you know, advantage pass rushing.
One of the things the defense focused on this spring is forcing more turnovers. The Tide defense ranked in the bottom half of the SEC in that category last year.
Like Coach Saban says, it's the #1 indicator of who wins the game and who loses the game is, turning the ball over and, keeping the ball secure on offense. So that's been a big emphasis for our defense, trying to force turnovers, batted balls, anything to help us win the turnover margin.
For Crimson Tide Kickoff, I'm Andrew Clare.
Thanks, Andrew. Just like on the offensive side of the ball, a lot of production and leadership needs to be replaced on defense. Here are the top 9 tacklers from a year ago. 4 are no longer in Tuscaloosa, but a solid base is coming back. To talk a lot more about this team and today's game, let's head down to the Walk of Champions to Jen Chapman. She's standing by with Tide 99.1's Ryan Fowler. Guys, take it away.
Hey, Gary, Ryan is gaining appreciation for TV right now. He just asked, what do I do with my hands? So, and he also looks so good. So, Ryan, we were talking before about Amari Cooper, and you think this is the biggest replacement, but maybe not. Let's hear your opinion on this.
Well, you look at Amari Cooper, no doubt it's going to be one of those difficult to replace, but you could also look at it as a defensive coordinator. When you played Alabama, you beat Alabama one way. You stop number 9. If you look at 2015, it's going to be a little bit different, and I think the quarterback, whoever wins that job, will be asked to spread around to 5 or 6 different guys, maybe less. But I think that makes it a little bit harder for the defensive coordinator. So you look at things half full. There's no way that you're not going to miss one of the best wide receivers that ever played here in Tuscaloosa, but you could look at it from a half full thing and say, well, there's going to be multiple wide receivers that are going to be a part of the offense, and that was really not the case last year.
Your show, very popular in Tuscaloosa. What's the #1 question you get asked?
That's the #1 question, whether you're stopping and getting gas or you're stopping at your church. Your preacher looks at you and says, who's going to be the quarterback? And that's a call that we take at least 5 times a day. Who's going to be the quarterback? And, right now I would probably put my money on David Cornwell. I've really moved on from Jacob Coker, and I've just, that's sort of my opinion, but hey, my opinion really doesn't matter when I look at Nick Saban. That's the one that counts. But if I was a betting man, and I'm not, I would say David Cornwell is your guy.
Well, I'm glad you brought up your opinions because you can be very opinionated. And being in Tuscaloosa, you don't shy away from the tough questions, especially about issues when you don't think somebody is portraying themselves in the right way or you disagree with them. Particularly recently, you were upset with Saban about a comment he made about the players. You want to address that a little bit?
Oh, wow, you're going to throw me right here. Okay, Coach, so if you're out there watching, he said on on Thursday, he said he really didn't want us to talk to players. So I was like, what now? Then what are we going to talk about? What are we going to ask him about? If you ask, we're not allowed to ask players about other players, which I think Saban will back off that before too long. That was just probably a Saban threat. I disagree with it, Coach. I've had a couple of different disagreements with you. Jonathan Taylor back in January, obviously we've moved past that. But I just think that we should have a little bit of access. And you being in the media, I'm sure you probably understand that a little bit too. But, you ask players to get insights. You ask the offensive lineman, how's the defensive line look? Or asking a defensive back, how a wide receiver's looking, or vice versa. I think that's very important for them. And I think it's part of, the publicity the University of Alabama gets.
And this is why people like your show, because you won't shy away from it. So one last question. Okay. How many times do you think you've heard Roll Tide?
Oh, in my 15-year radio days, maybe a million. I don't know. It's every call. And I feel, I feel this media allegiance, but also feel the allegiance because I went to the university. So sometimes I give the Roll Tide, and then sometimes I don't.
Oh, there we go. Well, we'll give a...
Can I give a Roll Tide? Roll Tide.
He got his Roll Tide in on TV. Gary, we're going to send it back to you.
Thanks, guys. Great stuff. A final check on the forecast, easy for me to say, is coming up right after this. CTKO rolls on from Tuscaloosa. It won't be too long now until the Crimson Tide is lined up and play against each other here in Bryant-Denny Stadium for the annual 8A game. It concludes spring drills for the Crimson Tide football team. And now to give us an idea on what the weather will be like at kickoff and during and after the game, we bring in Mr. Pull-Up himself, Richard Scott. Richard, what's it looking like for today?
Hey, Gary, so far so good. It looks gloomy outside. Looks like we could have some rain. And there's some drizzle and mist around, but nothing overly heavy. We looked at radar on the rain still back off towards the west, closer to Jackson, Mississippi, back to the west. But there's some rain coming. It's going to be here later today. And everybody's wondering about game time. What's it going to look like by the time we get to the game? And right now it looks like there could be some showers moving in, but most of the rain will actually come in after kickoff. We are looking at temperatures very mild. We'll be in the mid-70s to upper 70s. So if you are going to Bryant-Denny Stadium, look for some mild conditions for that game and a light south wind around 5 to 10 miles per hour. So nothing overly heavy in terms of rainfall until later this evening and tonight, Gary. So things get a little more active here on the Walk of Champions. A lot of folks lining up, getting ready for the team to get here and getting ready for the big game today.
It feels great right now, Richard. So, folks, come on down. Richard's going to hold the rain off for us. By the way, our production manager, James Rossi, wants to challenge you to a chin-up contest.
Let's do that.
Just so you know.
Let's do it.
All right, folks, that's about all the time we have for the show. Thanks to all of our behind-the-scenes staff and crew. They do a great job getting everything ready for this show. Don't forget, we'll have an A-Day highlights and post-game wrap-up packages tonight on Sports Saturday at 10:13 on WVUA TV with BJ Milliken and Jen Chapman. Thanks to you for watching. This has been Crimson Tide Kickoff. If you missed any of the show, catch replays throughout the day here on WVUA or later online at WVUATV.com. For everybody here at WVUA, thanks for watching. Enjoy A-Day Saturday. Roll Tide, everybody.